This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the newest edition of the GSMC Sports Podcast, which is always brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, as always. You know who it is, Kayvon Izami, coming at you guys with a whole new segment, a whole new 4 segments, I should say, and a whole new episode here on the GSMC Sports Podcast to bring you guys all of the big-time news that is going on in the sports world today. Once again, as I've said, this is my 3rd show moving over from the GSMC Football Podcast to the now GSMC Sports Podcast. So for all of you guys that have moved on over here with me, for all of my new listeners that I have now gotten, I hope that you guys are enjoying what you've listened to so far, and I hope you stick around and warm up to me a little bit and follow along through the ride, as it's going to be a fun one because I am going to lead you guys through all of the big events twice a week that goes on from whatever sport you want to talk about, head to toe. We will discuss it. And that's how we always are going to start off the show. We're going to start off the show breaking down just really quickly, laying out what's going on in the sports world. Obviously, a massive day, massive last 2 days here in the NFL, right? Tag, you're it. Everyone who knows about the NFL knows what tag, you're it means. It's tag day. It's franchise tag day. All across the NFL, all this week, we are seeing are teams going to tag their players or are they not? If you've lived under a rock for the last whatever so years and you don't know what a franchise tag means, it means that a team, if they can't come to an agreement with a contract with you and your agent, they have the ability to tag you. And that means you will get a 1-year salary at the highest paid number for your position. So Dak Prescott, he ended up getting a deal done, as you guys know, but if he wasn't, he would have been tagged for a 1-year deal, fully guaranteed for $37 million, right? Allen Robinson, big-time wide receiver for the Bears tagged him. He is going to get a 1-year, fully guaranteed deal for, I think it's $18 million a year. You that doesn't mean that if you get tagged on this day, as most of you know, but just refreshing everyone's memory, that you will automatically be playing on that franchise tag. No, that just means that the team buys themselves some time to negotiate with you further to then come up with the deal. I think you then have till June. I don't want to say the exact date, but it's somewhere in June to then come up with a deal. If you can't come up with a deal by June with the player and his agent, then that player will go into that next season on the franchise tag. And then after that, you can either tag him again if it's the first time you tagged him, or he will become a free agent. So that's kind of what we're dealing with today. And lots of big-time players were tagged. Lots of big-time players were not tagged. See, this year is the most fascinating year of it all because of what happened with the pandemic and with COVID. Just like every other business, the NFL was affected as well. Now, let's be real. The NFL, it's still a billion-dollar industry. They were not as affected as bad as a lot of these other businesses were. But their salary cap has decreased. Every single year, the salary cap has been going up because the sport's becoming more and more popular. The TV ratings are becoming bigger and bigger. The TV contracts. So as the salary cap goes up, that means teams have more money to spend on their players, right? When the salary cap goes up, it means the market goes up. Players earn more money. It's a win-win for everyone. Owners have more money to spend. Owners have more money to work with, which means more money goes into players' pockets. Because of the pandemic, the salary cap is taking a step back. And today, for the first time, we found out what the salary cap is going to be for the 2021-2022 season. It's going to be $182.5 million. Now, to give you guys a perspective of what that means, last year, the salary cap was $198.2 million. That means each team had $198.2 million to spend. This is a hard salary cap. You can't go over the cap. If you do, you're paying big-time luxury tax. You just can't. You got to get under the cap. You know, you have to get under that cap there. Owners do not want to be over the cap. It's a huge. It's a hole in their pocket, pretty much. You're just bleeding money at that time. So to put it into perspective, we're $17 million below what it was last year. $17 million is a high caliber player on your roster. That's not like getting rid of a couple of veterans. $17 million is an Allen Robinson. $17 million is a Kenny Golladay, who, by the way, did not get tagged today. The Detroit Lions felt, we can't spend that kind of money. We don't want to tag. We're going to let him go and see what he can get in the market. Now, also, if a team does not tag a player, it doesn't mean that they're losing that player. It just means that they are giving them the ability to go out to the market and see what other teams are willing to offer them. They still can come up with their own deal with them and hopefully sign them back. But in all likelihood, when you let a high caliber player go out to the market, a team is going to throw more money at them than you can, and you're going to lose them. But that's not always the case. You know, Shaq Barrett for the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. The Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they decided to tag Chris Godwin, their receiver, instead of their pass rusher Shaq Barrett, who they tagged last year. Now, that doesn't mean Shaq Barrett is going to leave the team. They might be able to find a long-term deal with him, but Shaq Barrett's also going to want his money, and someone on the open market is going to offer him a lot of money. Now, it will be up to Shaq Barrett to decide if he's willing to take a little bit of less because he knows that he's going to be fighting to win the Super Bowl because he's got Tom Brady and he's got that whole team pretty much coming back. That will be up to him. Me personally, I was a little shocked that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, and we're going to get all of this into the show, but I was a little shocked that the Buccaneers decided to go down that route. I thought that they would have tagged Shaq Barrett and tried to come up with a deal with Chris Godwin, because one thing that we've learned over the last couple of years, I know you guys have as well, and because I preach this all the time, so all of my great loyal listeners that have been listening to me for the last 6-7 months now, you guys know I preach win in the trenches. If you want to win in football, you got to win in the trenches. What does that mean? You have to have some of the best offensive and defensive linemen on your team in the game. That's what the Bucs had last year. They had the best offensive line, or one of the best, and they had one of the best, if not the best, defensive line. Wide receivers, especially when you have a quarterback like Tom Brady, you're able to replace those guys, especially because Tom Brady has done that his entire career. Tom Brady has worked, other than in 2017 with Randy Moss, and he's had, Deion Branch. He's had some really good receivers, Wes Welker, Edelman, all those guys. But he's not always had to have a superstar big-time receiver, right? And especially when the Bucs have guys like Mike Evans and Antonio Brown's probably going to come back, and Gronk's still there, and Scotty Miller showed a name for himself. When you have these type of guys, it's not as viable to keep a guy like Chris Godwin. It's honestly like a luxury. That's the word I've been using. Chris Godwin to them, who is a fantastic player, he's a luxury to them because they have so much other weapons at Brady's disposal, and Brady is good at using any type of weapon anyways, right? He can make you really good. That's just what Brady does. So I was pretty shocked to see that they didn't tag Shaq instead of Godwin, because on the other hand, it is very hard to replace a really good pass rusher. It just is. Those are a dime a dozen. You're not able to just lose a pass rusher and bring another one in. That rarely happens, right? pass rushers. That's why it's so hard to have a great defensive line. It's like a needle in a haystack. You can't find a lot of them out there. When you do, you want to hang on to them, and Shaq Barrett is one of those players. Now, I know that there's a lot of rumors going on in the Bucs organization that they feel like they'll be able to bring Shaq back. He'll take a little bit of a discount. We have to remember, Shaq Barrett now has 2 Super Bowl rings, right? And he was an undrafted free agent, which means he's never had a big contract. Yes, he played under the franchise tag last year, but he still hasn't gotten that big long-term deal. And he already has 2 Super Bowl rings. So to me, that's a guy that sounds like it's time to go chase my money and set myself up financially for the future. Who knows, but we'll see. So those are things that are going on right now. You know, big-time players that were not tagged. Aaron Jones of the Green Bay Packers. Kenny Golladay of the Detroit Lions, as I said. Corey Davis of the Tennessee Titans. Curtis Samuel of the Carolina Panthers. Shaq Barrett, as I said, of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Hassan Reddick was tagged. Very shocked about that. Was not tagged, I was very shocked about that. I thought Hassan Reddick, a young, really good player for the Arizona Cardinals, really good defensive player, I thought he would for sure get tagged. He was not tagged. So these are a couple names. We'll go through a lot more of it into the show, but those are a couple of names that were not tagged. So today and yesterday have been a very big day in the NFL in terms of teams finding out what the salary cap is. Remember, $182.5 million, and teams deciding who are they going to tag, who are they going to let go, and really starting to figure out what teams are going to do with their rosters moving forward. This is going to be such a fascinating NFL offseason. It really is, whether it's with the draft or whether it's with the offseason moves. Because the salary cap went down, I'm telling you guys this right now. You guys are going to see on your phone, everyone who's big fans of their teams, you get notifications from Adam Schefter or from your team website anytime something happens. You guys are going to see players getting released that are really good players left and right. And you're going to be shocked by it, so I'm warning you now. Get ready for it. Big-time players are going to get released from their teams left and right because these teams are going to be trying to do everything they can desperately to get their team under the cap because the salary cap has gone down. It's a serious thing. Like this pandemic, look, I mean, it's very, 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 very micro in terms of other things that have happened in this world because of the pandemic. I mean, people literally lost jobs. They literally lost their companies, not just lost money. They lost their companies. They lost lives, all that stuff. So understand, this is relative to the sports world here, okay? But it's a big deal in terms of what these teams are going to do with their money, what these teams are going to do with their players. Obviously, as I said, in real life, it's much, much smaller than that. But we're looking at it as a standpoint of the football league, the NFL, the National Football League, the massive business that owns 24/7. Like I say, owns pretty much one day of the week, getting close to 2-3 days of the week. So that's what's going on in the NFL. Obviously, we're going to break down the Dak situation. Some things going on in NCAA, college. College tournaments have started, baby. March Madness is fully underway. Again, next Sunday, Selection Sunday comes out. We'll find out our brackets. We can start to fill them out. We'll debate those much more. But we are now underway with conference tournaments. Now, conference tournaments are a very big deal because for all of you, again, that have been under a rock for a long time now, if a team wins their conference tournament, they automatically get a bid to the NCAA tournament. They could have won one game all year. Literally, they could have been the worst team in the entire college basketball landscape. But if they got hot and they went on and won their entire conference tournament, they would get a bid, an automatic bid, to the March Madness dance, the NCAA tournament, which Selection Sunday comes out on Sunday once again. So that is why is that so important? That's important because you have teams who get automatic bids, which are the teams who win the tournaments, and then you have teams who are already who get bids based on their play, right? Who get a bid in because they had a good resume. They put together a good resume all throughout the season. Teams like Gonzaga, who right now is the number 1 seed overall. They're going to, since they won their conference and since they were undefeated all year and then they just finished off last night by beating BYU to win that West Coast Conference, they're going to end up the number 1 overall seed. That's pretty much given, okay? So teams like that, right? Teams like Baylor and Illinois and Michigan, Alabama, Oklahoma State, Texas, these teams that did really well, Arkansas, in the season, they're already automatically going into the dance as well. The conference tournament for them is really just kind of trying to improve your seed and get going, get warmed up, trying to get hot as you go into the tournament, okay? So the reason that conference tournaments are so interesting, other than just it's basketball and it's single elimination, you win, you move on, you lose, you go home, right? What's better than that? It's also fascinating because the teams that end up winning their tournament, if they're teams that were not projected to make the field right now, right? Right now, there's a projected number of teams who put together a good resume throughout the regular season. Well, the teams, there's Joe Lunardi, who's, I call him, the bracketologist god. He is literally everything that has to do with bracketology. He puts together all season who he thinks is in, who he thinks is out. Right now, he has as the last 4 byes. So these are 4 teams that he believes they're not the last 4 in, they're the next 4. So they're the first 8 in. They're the second to last 4 in, I should say. That's Michigan State, VCU, Louisville, and Georgia Tech. Okay? The last 4 in are Drake, Boise State, Colorado, and Xavier. He has Xavier as literally the last team in right now. And then the first 4 out, the ones that if the tournament started today, these 4 would not have made the tournament, but they would have been the first 4 that almost made it, right? They were the last ones to not make it. That's Utah State, St. Louis, Syracuse, and Memphis. So the reason why I tell you guys these teams is because these teams are teams that you have to pay attention to during this week, because these are the teams that, first of all, they need to do well in their conference tournament, right? Especially if you're either the first 4 out or you're the last 4 in, you're looking to improve your resume. That is the whole definition of March Madness. You're looking to improve your resume to the committee, right? But you also are wishing for teams to not steal an automatic bid, because there's only a certain number of teams that can make the tournament, right? So, say a random team like Iona, who is coached by Rick Pitino, by the way. Rick Pitino, we all know who Rick Pitino is. Famous, Hall of Fame Louisville basketball coach, coached in the NBA. Really, really famous basketball coach, got in trouble, obviously, with some of the scandals that went on at Louisville. He is now the head coach of Iona. All right, Iona has not put together a well-rounded season where they're into the tournament. So the only way they can make the tournament is if they win their conference tournament. And they won their first round last night, and then today they upset the number 1 seed in the quarterfinals, Siena. So now they're going on to the semifinals. If they end up winning this tournament, they would be what you call a bid stealer. A bid stealer is a team that had no shot of making the tournament. They weren't going to get one of those bids, but if they win their automatic tournament, that means they're in. If they win their conference tournament, they get the automatic bid, which means one less team doesn't get to go, right? So those teams on the bubble, they don't want one of these teams that are come out of nowhere to win the conference tournament, because it steals a bid for one of these teams that are fighting by a hair to get in right now. I know that's a lot, but most of you guys that follow along, you already know what this is. I was explaining this for those that are more new to how this works, but I believe most of my audience is pretty seasoned in this and knows what's up. So these are things that we're following. I'm following teams like Louisville, who lost today in the ACC tournament to Duke. Louisville was Joe Lunardi's last 4 byes, right? So he wasn't they're not the last 4 in, they're the second last 4 in. Does this hurt Louisville now? Is Louisville in trouble now that they just lost to Duke? Or are they good? Louisville will be sitting on their hands and knees praying for teams like Iona to lose, praying for teams not to steal the automatic bid. That's what they'll be looking for. Lots more to go in with this. And then, of course, the Dak Prescott conversation. Just wanted to open up the show. We won't always use our first segment to dive into stuff like this, but I did want to lay it out a little bit and explain to you guys how things are working, what we're going to be talking about. We're going to come back after this, and we're going to go right into the Dak Prescott news. And I want to get into it from a different angle, okay? Dak Prescott, you got to be happy for the guy, right? You got to be happy for him. He held his ground, and he went toe-to-toe with a business giant. Not just in the NFL, business giant in one of the biggest business giants in the U.S. He went toe-to-toe with him, and he won. We're going to dive much more into Dak Prescott getting his money, securing his bag right after this. Don't go anywhere.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. The GSMC Sports Podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I really would like to thank you all for tuning in and listening to us on this lovely day. However you're listening, wherever you're listening, and whenever you're listening, we really do appreciate you just taking a little bit of time out of your day to listen to us. Whether you're coming off and on listening to the whole show at once, it really does mean a lot to us. The ratings have been out the roof, and that is why we're now doing the all sports podcast and not just the football one. So for all of you that are just now switching over, I said it on Twitter, I said it on the company Twitter page and my own Twitter page, but I know some of you guys might have not caught that right away. So hopefully you've all noticed that I am no longer doing the GSMC football shows, and I will be here on the GSMC Sports Podcast every Monday and Thursday. I'll be recording it live, and then it should come out Tuesday and Friday for all of you to listen, wherever you get and listen on your respected podcast platform. So thank you very much, guys. We have, I always talk about this, and for all of you that have been following along for a while, I love to plan out my show, right? I'm very neat. I'm very organized with how I do it. I don't write down, everything I'm going to say. Obviously, that would take hours and hours, but I write bullet points, and I come up with sections and segments on what I want to talk about first, what I want to talk about second. Sometimes throughout the show, I'll end up getting carried away into a topic where I'll end up switching some of the formats. But as I've said many times, this is the sports industry, and one of the things that makes it so great is things can come up at any moment, at any given time. All you have to do is really pin your notifications on Twitter of Adam Schefter or Adrian Wojnarowski or a lot of other guys out there in the business that are great at it, but Woj and Schefter to me are two of the greatest. And if something pops up with breaking news, you know right away. And we are delighted to announce that we do have some breaking news. Now, obviously, this show, I record it live, but you guys are not able to listen to it live. But that is a feature, by the way, that we are starting to work on here, or I am starting to work on my end, where I can record this and have you guys watch and listen live. So maybe that's some good news coming out later. But when you do start to listen to this show, you'll already hear this breaking news. But the breaking news that is happening is Adam Schefter has reported that finally the dance is over, ladies and gentlemen. The nonstop conversation for 2 years that we are all sick and tired of is finally over. The Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott have agreed to a contract. There is no franchise tag. Once again, we do not have to go all summer debating, is Dak going to be a Cowboy? Is he not? Why is Jerry Jones not paying him? It's over. It is finally over, ladies and gentlemen, as the Cowboys are giving Dak Prescott a 4-year, $160 million deal, including a record. This is an NFL record, $126 million guaranteed. Sources tell Adam Schefter. Okay, so that is a couple things to break down here, all right? And we're going to get really, this is what I'm talking about, where you got to switch things on the fly, right? A lot of things that I wanted to talk about today, like the All-Star game, my thoughts on the NBA All-Star game. What are we looking at as we head into the second half of the NBA season? Blake Griffin signs with the Brooklyn Nets. These are NBA topics because we are now in March. What do you know? Things twisted up. We will probably get to at least one, maybe two of those topics, but this show is going to be heavily consisted of what this means for the Cowboys, what this means for Dak Prescott, and this deal all the way around. But this is a huge domino. This is probably this is the biggest NFL headline that we've had in some recent weeks. We've had the gossip of, could Russell Wilson go anywhere? Is Deshaun Watson finally going to go somewhere? Will the Texans budge? Is Deshaun Watson going to have to hold out? We've talked about all that stuff ad nausea, right? This is real. This is now happening. Dallas Cowboys are giving Dak Prescott a 4-year, $160 million deal, including a record $126 million guaranteed. The first 3 years will average at $42 million per year. Okay, so to give you guys some perspective on what that means exactly, right? This is where the salary stands now. This is how it stacks up. Patrick Mahomes is making $45 million a year. Dak Prescott's going to make $40 million a year. Deshaun Watson's going to make $39 million a year. And then Russell Wilson is making $35 million a year. That's Russell Wilson. So, again, if you're just joining us here on the GSMC Sports Podcast, it is a done deal. The Cowboys and franchise quarterback Dak Prescott have agreed on a 4-year, $160 million deal, including a record $126 million guaranteed. That's always where you want to start first. With the NFL, with these sports, you look at things differently. Like, whenever an MLB contract comes out, the first thing I look at is the number of years. A lot of people get worked up over how much the deal is worth, and oh my goodness, it's worth $300, $400, half a billion dollars, which is insane, right? I look more at the amount of years because I find the amount of years absurd that baseball contracts give out. For NFL, though, it's different. For NFL, the first thing that you want to look at when you see a big contract like this, or any contract really, is you want to start with the guaranteed money in the NFL. Because once the guaranteed money runs out on a contract, a team can get rid of you pretty quickly. Now, that's not the case for Dak Prescott, who is a fantastic player, but that's something that you want to look at. All right, that's where you want to start. So you want to look at the guaranteed money, which is a record in this instance, right, for a quarterback or any player, not just a quarterback, any NFL player ever. That is $126 million guaranteed from the Cowboys to Dak Prescott. The first 3 years of this contract are going to average at $42 million. And then it averages out over the 4 years to $40 million a year. Dak Prescott won. Dak Prescott avoids what he wanted to, right? He avoids getting the fifth year from the Cowboys. He avoids getting the 6th year from the Cowboys. Remember, the reason, well, this is what we were hearing, and I believe there is a lot of validity to it. A reason why that this contract, this holdup was because the Cowboys wanted to keep Dak longer, right? They wanted to sign him to a 5, 6, 7-year deal. They weren't worried. They had no problem giving Dak the Patrick Mahomes money, but they wanted to give him the amount of years that Patrick Mahomes got. Remember, Mahomes got a 10-year deal. We don't see that in football. Usually football is 4, 5, 6-year deals, right? You see hockey, they get 7, 8 years. You don't really see that in football much. And Dak didn't want that. Dak wanted a 3 or 4 year deal. And that was the big holdup, right? Dak wanted a 3 or 4 year deal. They didn't want to do that. They wanted to sign him to longer terms. Well, Dak ended up winning. Dak said, no, that's not what I want. What I'd like is a 4-year deal. They agreed upon it. The deal includes $66 million at signing bonus and $75 million in year 1, the most in NFL history once again. So Dak is just breaking all kinds of records with this contract. And the reason why Dallas wanted to spread this out and give him numerous years is because it helps out the salary cap. It helps them out with everything. Dak says, I get it. I know others like Tom Brady has done that. That's not going to be me. I want my money, and he got his money. So again, if this, if this strategy, and this wasn't Dak's choice for this to work this way, but this is how it happened. If this type of thing worked in every industry, the game plan pretty much would be, hey, get yourself injured somehow so you can reveal how much you're worth. Look, not always it's going to work out great like that. Sometimes you might get injured. Sometimes you might have to go away for a little bit. And the person that comes in that replaces you, they do a pretty damn good job. Next thing you know, you're never coming back, right? But in Dak Prescott's case, it worked very well. If we all remember, Dak Prescott got injured this year, and that's not a laughing matter. I'm not laughing at that. I'm laughing about what I was saying beforehand. But he got injured. Andy Dalton came in, Andy Dalton's had a decent NFL career. Nothing great, not a bad one, a good one, right? An average NFL career. And the Cowboys were atrocious. Now, the Cowboys were pretty freaking bad before Dak got hurt early in the season, but at least they were putting up a lot of points offensively. There was a big spark offensively. The team really fell apart once Dak got hurt. So the Cowboys realized, we're screwed without Dak Prescott. And it's the old adage, grass isn't always greener on the other side. Sometimes you think, I'm the Dallas Cowboys, I'm the biggest brand in sports, we're bigger than Dak itself. Sometimes you kind of got to get a slap to reality and realize that's not the case. And that's why Dak won these negotiations. Look, there's no selling this short here, ladies and gentlemen. I mean, to be straight up about it, the Cowboys got schooled. The Cowboys got played. And it was all because of their own doing. I mean, it's just that plain and simple. This is a phenomenal deal for Dak Prescott. This is a horrible deal for the Dallas Cowboys. And it has nothing to do with the amount of money. See, when you turn on your sports talk, your favorite, all throughout the week, tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, doesn't matter. This is going to be a 2-week, 3-week story. When you turn on your sports talk radio, your favorite TV show, your favorite radio show, you're going to be hearing all over, how could the Cowboys give him this amount of money, right? How could that Dak Prescott is not worth Patrick Mahomes' money? He's not worth Russell Wilson money. How is he getting this type of money? That's what you're going to hear. My question would be to all of those people saying that, who else are you going to get? Who are you going to get to replace Dak? This is a quarterback-driven league, ladies and gentlemen. You know it, and I know it. Your team is not going anywhere unless you have a quarterback. That is pure on facts, right? Just doesn't happen. We've seen teams every single year win a Super Bowl without a running back. We see teams all the time win a Super Bowl without a star wide receiver. Have you ever seen a team win a Super Bowl without a really good quarterback? It happens every so often, right? When you get a Trent Dilfer and one of the best defenses we've seen in the last 10 years in the Baltimore Ravens, right? Or when you get a rookie Russell Wilson who was phenomenal, and again, one of the best defenses we've seen in the last 5 years, 10 years in the Seattle Seahawks. Those type of situations will happen every so often, but most of the time, if you're winning a Super Bowl, it's because your quarterback is Hall of Fame caliber. So that's my first rebuttal to all those people that say, oh my goodness, how is Dak getting paid $40 million? Well, because he can. Because that's what the market dictates. See, I get it. That's a sports talk. That's what you do. But that's what the market is. Dak's time was up to get paid. And the market tells us right now that the last quarterback to get paid got $45 million a year. Now, is Patrick Mahomes as good as... is Dak Prescott as good as Patrick Mahomes? No. I think all of us would sit here that everybody that is rational, everybody that, is not just just mind on Cowboys only, and that's it. You can't think of anything else. You're just a Dak lover and you can't see the bigger picture. I think we would all agree that Patrick Mahomes is not just better, but he's more accomplished. But that doesn't mean that Dak doesn't deserve that top dollar money, because that is what the market dictates. It's just like in your own industry. If your employee that does the exact same job as you gets paid this amount of money, if you're doing the exact same job, you should probably get paid the same. That's how it is in the NFL. And Dak's time was up to get paid that. So I'm not here to argue, did the Cowboys pay him too much? Because the problem is, it's not Dak's fault. Dak's a good player. Is he a top 5 quarterback? I don't have him in the top 5, but I have him in the top 10. I think he's a top 10 quarterback. I think he's a very good quarterback. I think with the right pieces around him, he could win some serious playoff games. I think with the right coach around him, he could win some serious playoff games. But is he a Patrick Mahomes? No, of course he's not a Patrick Mahomes. Is he a Deshaun Watson? No, he's not a Deshaun Watson. He's not an Aaron Rodgers. He's not a Russell Wilson. He's better than Kirk Cousins. All right, he is. I fully believe that. I think he's better than Jimmy G. Jimmy G, with the right pieces around him, he went to the Super Bowl. I think Dak is better than Jimmy G. So, I'm not here to debate, was Dak worth that money? Dak was worth the money because that's what the market dictated. The question is, though, the problem, I should say, is what the Cowboys did with their money before they paid Dak. See, when I got my notification, as I talked about earlier, from Adam Schefter saying a deal has been done, I was sitting there waiting. He first tweeted out, Cowboys and QB Dak Prescott have a deal. That's it, right? Then, about 5 minutes later, he tweeted out the details of the deal. And when I saw that, I said, oh my goodness, that is a lot of money that Dak deserves, but the Cowboys are in trouble. And I instantly retweeted his Adam Schefter's tweet with saying, this is a massive win for Dak Prescott and a huge loss for the Dallas Cowboys. I'm going to explain what that means right after this, because a lot of you are probably sitting there thinking, you're just telling us that you believe Dak is a top 10, top 8 quarterback and he's worth this money, so how is it a loss for a Cowboys? It's a massive loss for Jerry Jones and the Dallas Cowboys, and it has nothing to do with who Dak is as a quarterback. Stay tuned. You're going to want to hear what I have to say about that. And then what does this mean? Now that this domino has fallen, what's next in this crazy, crazy NFL offseason? Do not go anywhere. We will be right back to talk more Dak Prescott, Dallas Cowboys coming together on a record-breaking deal right after this.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA, from the UFC to extreme cage fighting. They got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. You are listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. The GSMC Sports Podcast is brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. You can tune in and listen to any of the episodes or shows in the GSMC Podcast Network all over any type of platform, of your podcast platform that you can find. So go and check those out whenever you can, and wherever you're listening to, however you're listening, whenever. We really do appreciate you taking a little time out of your day to tune in and listen to all of your sports content. Look, we've got a lot going on this off season. Now that we're doing the all sports podcast, we are going to be coming at you guys with fire over this next couple months, especially over this month of March as we enter March Madness. Conference tournament play has officially started. Some of the bigger Power 5 conferences get going this coming Tuesday, so tomorrow, and then again this upcoming Sunday, Selection Sunday will happen, and then that Monday I will be live on our show to talk down and break down, all of the brackets and everything that's going to happen in the bracket. Will go region by region, team by team. We will seriously spend most of that show on Monday having a lot of fun, because if you guys are like me, you love filling out some brackets. And I kind of got into this last show, so I'm not going to get into it too much here, but we're going to get right back into the breaking news. Remember, Dak Prescott and the Dallas Cowboys, the debate, the dance, it's finally over. We don't have to deal with this debate anymore, this topic that we've all been just so sick of and so tired of for 2 years now. Is Dallas gonna sign Dak? Does Dak want to be in Dallas? How much money are they going to give him? It's over, ladies and gentlemen. It is over, as Adam Schefter broke the news right before I came on air and started recording. The Dallas Cowboys are giving Dak Prescott a 4-year, $160 million deal with a record $126 million guaranteed. That is a record. That is an NFL record, not just for QB, but for any player in the history of the NFL. So we're going to finish up breaking that down in just a second here, but as I was saying with the NCAA bracket, if you guys are like me, and remember, I'm 26 years old, okay? So I like to think that I'm not that old, right? So a lot of people in my age group or around my generation feel that, they're used to the whole apps, right? Apps, it's all about the apps, and I totally get that. I use a lot of different apps, but one thing that I am old school to the day I die about, and I love being old school about this, I'm completely happy with saying this, is filling out tournament bracket, all right, on paper. There is nothing like once Selection Sunday comes out and you see the bracket, it comes out, you go and print out your very own bracket, and you got your teams there, and you write hand by hand, team by team, every single game, right? You write in who you think's going to win for each region, each game. You fill out the Final Four, you fill out the championship, and you pick your winner, writing it all in hand. You hang it up, and then you've got your red Sharpie, your green Sharpie, and all throughout the tournament when games go from freaking noon to midnight, the best time of the year, you're going up and you're crossing it out with hand, whether you got it right or wrong. Now I know we have the ESPN app, we've got the NCAA app, the CBS app. We have all these apps where we can create our own bracket with, and they'll do the scoring for us, and it's all automated. Right when a team game is over, they mark it win or loss, and it's over, right? I get that. I do some of those brackets as well, trust me. I have a lot of tournaments, where I do bracket pools with friends, and we'll use those because it's easier to keep track with when you have 10, 20, 30, 40 people in it. But for all of you that's just doing one bracket by yourself, and you obviously can do many others, if you haven't done it yet, I highly suggest, for those of you that have, you know what I'm talking about. There's something about just printing out your own bracket right on Selection Sunday, filling it out while the teams are coming out, and sitting down and doing your research, looking up the records, looking up who they played, and just hand paper winner by winner by winner until you got your Final Four. Then you're sending pictures of your bracket. That to me is a joy. I mean, I genuinely love doing that. And for all of you that have done that before, you know exactly what I mean. I'm old school about that, and I will stay old school about that because I truly do love hand filling out my NCAA bracket, which is going to be a winner this year. I'm telling you, I'm feeling it. I've got a couple teams in mind, but boy, I think there's one team. I got to see where their bracket is, obviously. I got to see what they could get a really hard draw. I'm not going to give anything away yet, but if this team that I really like gets a good draw, I'm going to be putting them down to win it all. And we'll get to that on Monday. But I want to get back into this Dak Prescott signing with the Dallas Cowboys here. Again, if you're just joining us on the GSMC Football Podcast, Dak Prescott inks a 4-year deal with the Dallas Cowboys, and he gets what he wanted, right? This is what we've heard over and over and over for the 2 years now. We have been covering this topic. What have we heard numerous times? The Cowboys want a longer deal, Dak Prescott wants a shorter deal. The Cowboys want a longer deal, Dak Prescott wants a shorter deal, right? That's what we've heard so often. Well, Dak won. Dak was not willing to take it. Hey, Dak, take a pay cut. You know why? If you take a pay cut, we can use that salary cap to build around you, right? We can bring in more pieces. Nah, Dak wanted to change the channel on that one. Dak didn't really like the tune of that song. Dak went by his own tune. Dak said, I hear what you're singing over there, but I think you want to listen to my lyrics, all right? Because my lyrics tell you that I want a 3 or 4 year deal, and my guaranteed money better be the richest in NFL history. And if you don't listen to my lyrics, well, you're going to be stuck with someone like Andy Dalton. Don't we all remember what happened this year with Andy Dalton? And the Cowboys finally gave in, and they said, yeah, you're right. We're going to listen to your lyrics because we like the sound of your lyrics better than we like the sound of ours. And that is how this has happened. Dak Prescott has now, like I said in segment number 1, the first thing that you want to look at when you're looking at NFL contracts, don't do this with every contract in sports, but NFL contracts, you want to look at the guaranteed money, right? Because that speaks volumes. He got the most guaranteed money in NFL history. Most guaranteed money in NFL history. So that right there shows, okay, he won that. He got a 4-year deal. He wanted a 3 or 4 year deal. He won that. When Dak Prescott and this deal ends, Dak Prescott will be 31 years old. So he'll be in prime position to ink another massive deal. All right? Highest signing bonus in NFL history. Dak Prescott, $66 million. Russell Wilson, $65 million. Aaron Rodgers, $57 million. So Dak Prescott also broke the record on that one. Dak Prescott also got a no-trade clause. So if for some reason his play fell off and the Cowboys were trying to get rid of him, they would not be able to trade him unless he said he agrees. Right? That's what we're seeing right there in Deshaun Watson and down in Texas. With the Houston Texans. If they do end up wanting to trade him, they have to trade him to a place where Deshaun Watson will agree upon because he has a no-trade clause. And then they also have a no-tag clause, which means they can't re-tag him or anything like that, right? They can't franchise tag him like they already have once. And we thought they were going to have to do again. Turns out they ended up getting a deal. And what's fascinating about this deal is this, and this is kind of what I was alluding to in the first segment here, and this is what I really want to dive deeper in. Right after I saw this deal come out, I tweeted out, this is a massive win for Dak Prescott, but a huge loss for the Dallas Cowboys. And a lot of people can sit there and say, how does that go pair and pair? How can you say that is equal, right? Because if it's a win for Dak, you would think it would mean it's a win for the Cowboys because Dak is their quarterback. He's playing for the Cowboys. Yes, in that terms, it's great, right? In terms of they still have a highly capable franchise-winning quarterback. That's a check, right? They have a good quarterback, and you'll hear all over this week on the radio people saying, they paid too much. This is a ridiculous price. Yes, it's a ridiculous price, but it's what the market said. It's what the market dictates. So they didn't pay too much. That's what the market is. Now, they could have avoided paying this much if they paid him at the right moment. If the Cowboys and Jerry Jones didn't screw up this whole situation so bad, Dak Prescott would have never been getting $40 million a year. He would have never broken the all-time guaranteed contract record for a player. It wouldn't have happened. Okay, it would not have happened. And that's why I said, whenever you hear people say, okay, they paid too much, this is ridiculous, always ask the question, who are they going to get in return? Are they going to run it back out with Andy Dalton for a year? Are they going to draft a rookie? What are they going to do? Can they get Deshaun Watson? If you come up and, let me know. Tweet at me, at Kayvon_sports. If you tell me that they can get Deshaun Watson, clap hands, sign it, get the deal done right away. I'm taking Deshaun over Dak Prescott right away. If you want to get Russell Wilson, that's great. I would get Russell Wilson. Are you going to get Patrick Mahomes? No, none of that stuff's going to happen, right? So you can't get anyone better than Dak Prescott, so all you're left to do is sign him. And that's where it comes into that this is a loss for the Cowboys. It's not a loss in the terms that they signed Dak Prescott. That's fantastic. I'm glad that they did that. It's how they had to have signed him. It's because they screwed every single contract up before getting to him. They signed every single player before getting to him. It doesn't work that way. What have I just been saying? The quarterback is everything. The quarterback is the most important piece on the team. As I said in segment number 1, you don't win a Super Bowl 99% of the time unless your quarterback is either a future Hall of Famer or close to it. So we understand that, right? So the whole point of what I'm trying to say here is why Dak won. Well, Dak won because he got his money, he got to stay with the Cowboys, and he pretty much got everything he asked for. The Cowboys lost because, yes, they got their quarterback, which is a win. There's no doubt about that. But now they're going to be salary cap, stuck for many years because they did it the wrong way. They went and signed their running back to a 6-year, $90 million deal, $50 million guaranteed, before they signed their quarterback. Who's a top 10 quarterback in the NFL? All because their running back went to Cabo and was pouting and was saying he's not going to come back to play unless they sign him. Guess what? Dak Prescott, he wasn't getting signed either. Did you see him going off to Cabo? Did you see him pouting? No. And you still didn't sign him. You went out and signed Jalen Smith, who is a remarkable story of what happened with him, how he was going to be a top 5 pick in the draft. Then in the bowl game before he went into the NFL, he tore up his leg real bad, ended up dropping, they said he might not play again. He ends up dropping down to the second round. He gets picked there. He came back to be a great player. But they then signed him to a 6-year, $68 million deal as a linebacker with $35 million guaranteed before they signed their quarterback. They signed Amari Cooper to a 5-year, $100 million deal with $60 million guaranteed before they signed their quarterback. DeMarcus Lawrence, 5-year, $105 million contract, $65 million guaranteed before they signed their contract. They signed all of these contracts before they signed their contract. And by the time they signed their contract, the market value was $40 million. The market dictates what you have to sign your players. And the longer you wait, the franchises that get ahead of the market are the smart ones. They're the smart ones. If you go out and sign your quarterback and you set the market, then you're the smart one. Instead of waiting for a Patrick Mahomes, who everybody in the league knew Patrick Mahomes was going to get one of the richest deals we've ever seen in the NFL history. We all knew that because of how special of a player Patrick Mahomes is. So why would the Cowboys not sit here and say, okay, we know that's coming eventually. We got to get ahead of that deal. Because once that deal comes out, Dak Prescott is going to want that type of deal. And why would he not? Doesn't matter that he's not as good as Patrick Mahomes. It doesn't matter that he hasn't won a Super Bowl yet. He is a starting quarterback, and he showed to you guys this year when he got hurt that you guys need him. He had all the leverage, and Jerry Jones and the Cowboys had none of it. And that's why it's great that they got their quarterback, but boy, are they going to be in trouble when it comes to being able to build a team around him. This is the GSMC Football Podcast. I'm your host. Just slipped up there. This is the GSMC Sports Podcast. I am your host, Kayvon Izami. Hope everyone's having a great day. We will be right back. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to dive into a little bit more of this Cowboys talk with Dak Prescott and Jerry Jones, and where do they go from here now that they're signed? What are the expectations for this team? We told you there's not going to be much wiggle room. For all you Cowboys fans, pump the brakes. Make sure your phone is close because you're going to be getting a lot of notifications in the next couple days, weeks, months of saying players are being cut because the Cowboys are going to have to relieve some of this money. We'll be right back. Talk more. This is the GSMC Sports Podcast.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's GSMCpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
You are listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Kayvon Izami. 3 segments down, 1 segment to go here. I hope everyone's enjoying the show. Hope everyone's having a great start to their week. Weekend's been going by really fast lately. I feel like I look up Friday, it's Sunday, we're back to work on Monday. But hey, that's life. It's rolling. We got to enjoy it with a smile, keep our head up, be nice to people, and help others out, and we should feel a lot of purpose in this world, in my opinion. Look, it's really funny. This is kind of randomly off topic, but my family had a really funny incident. It's not funny, but it's actually pretty funny, but it's also just like, how did this happen? So, you know how when you're shopping on Amazon, you can put things in carts, right? I mean, you can do this on any website pretty much, but Amazon in particular, you can shop on there, and if you see something you like, you can put it in your cart and come back later. I never understood why people do that. It makes me so aggravated. It has officially become a pet peeve of mine when people put things in their cart, their shopping cart, and then their online, obviously, shopping cart, not their legit shopping cart, and they just leave it there. And they come back later or whatever, or they end up never buying it. Why do that? You can just look it up again, right? Amazon will also tell you, they'll show you the stuff that you were shopping. Like, it will be there on your main screen when you go back to Amazon. I don't understand why people have to leave things in their cart. It's annoying. It is annoying. I do not like it, okay? I see people do it all the time. My sister does it all the time. All the time. Well, my sister taught my dad how to do that, right? And we all share one Amazon account, right? We all have our cards on there, and we buy stuff on there and all that stuff, and we have Amazon Prime, get movies, all that great stuff. Our different addresses, everything. So we have our Amazon account, right? And my sister somehow showed my dad, who is, he's a very smart guy. He's an aerospace engineer. But let's just say he's not the best with technology, and Dad, if you're listening, that's no slight to you. Again, very, very smart guy, aerospace engineer, just not the best with technology. And my sister shows my dad, this is where you can just put things in your cart, and if you want to come get it later, you can get it later. And I'm like, why do that? Why? So annoying. Well, anyways, I didn't know that she was showing him this. So my dad was looking at a bunch of chairs, I guess, for his house. And he ended up putting like 6 chairs in the cart. Well, he ended up purchasing everything that was in the cart. Everything. It was like $1,200 worth of stuff. And it was just random, like, chairs were getting, and my mom's card was on the thing, all right? My mom's card was the default card, so he didn't even get charged for it. My mom got charged for it. So next thing I know, I get a text from my mom saying, why do I keep getting boxes of chairs in front of my house? So my mom looks at her bank account, $1,200 is gone from it, and she's just getting over and over. There are boxes of chairs from Amazon getting shipped to her house. And I'm over here like, I knew that this was going to happen eventually. You don't put things in your cart. So, I get on the phone and I yell and I say, Dad, don't worry. This isn't your fault. I'm going to call Sarah, my sister. I'm going to go at her for this. So I call Sarah and say, this is not my fault, blah, 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 blah. It's totally your fault, Sarah. Totally your fault if you're listening to this. I'm not blaming it on Dad. I'm blaming it on you because you taught Dad how to do that stuff. So now we're dealing with this issue with Amazon where I'm trying to, return everything, get all the money back. The problem is not all of the stuff was bought directly through Amazon. You know how Amazon has other sellers, like other companies on their site that you can buy things through? You buy it through Amazon, but you're actually buying it from that other company. Well, some of these chairs were from other companies like that. So Amazon was like, we can cancel all the ones that you bought from us, and you can just send it back and we'll return your money once we get it. But these other ones, you got to get in contact with them. So I'm over here, cleaning everything up. I'm emailing these other sellers, telling them what happened. One seller's giving me a really hard time saying, we can't just return these chairs. And I'm like, sir, we don't need chairs. Like, I don't know why my dad was even looking at it. There's no reason for us to have these chairs here. You got to take them back. So it's just a something, that's my PSA for the day, all right? That's my public service announcement right there. Just don't keep things in your cart. Why do it? Just either buy it on the spot or take it out of your cart and come back and get it later. It's not that complicated. Whatever you searched to find it that first time, guess what? If you search the same thing, you're going to find it again. You're going to find it again. It's not a magic trick. It's not rocket science. Don't keep things in your cart. Please. That's all I'm asking. All right? Because now I'm over here dealing with all that. This is the GSMC Sports Podcast. I'm your host, Kayvon. I thank you guys for letting me go off on that tangent real quick. I needed to get it out. That's the best part about having a nice little platform to talk. I like to talk, and sometimes people don't like to listen to me talk. So instead, I can just come on here and talk to you guys. And I think most of you enjoy it. But if you don't, you can always turn it off and come back later. And I do hope you do come back later. But that's what's going to happen. Sometimes you just got to spill the guts. You just got to let all of it out and sit back and say, that was nice. That was nice. You know what's not nice right now? What's happening in Seattle, especially for all you fans up in the Pacific Northwest. You're not happy. You can't be happy, right? Because your Pro Bowl, future Hall of Famer, star-studded quarterback is not happy. And if he's not happy, well, you as fans can't get happy because that leaves you worried. It leaves you questioning what's going to happen with the future of this team. Now, what do we know about this situation? What do we know? We know that this is not the first time Russell Wilson has complained. This is not the first time. I want to make that very clear. I've heard a lot of people say, why is this coming out of nowhere from Russell Wilson? This is not coming out of nowhere. He is just really emphasizing the point this time. He's taking it to a whole new level this time. But this has been brought out of Russell's mouth before, all right? He has complained before about getting hit too much. He's complained that his offensive line isn't that good. And you remember a couple years ago, there was that whole idea of Russell said he would love to play in New York because his wife Sierra loves New York. She likes to be in the bigger cities. That was up there. There has been issues before with Russell Wilson. If we go even farther back, there was locker room issues because a lot of guys on that Legion of Boom defense, they didn't really like the way Seattle was treating Russell better than they were treating them. It was kind of like the whole Clippers thing, that dynamic. They ended up rolling with Russell, and all of those guys ended up kind of just eventually leaving the organization. So there's always been some issues, but now there's some real issues coming between Russell and the organization. And now it's getting much more heated. It's getting much more magnified by Russell's comments. Now, for all of you that are living under a rock once again and not up to date on this, Russell Wilson went on the Great Dan Patrick Show, and I say great because Dan Patrick is phenomenal. He is one of the best at this job right here. And on the show, he straight up said it all. He straight up called out the organization. He called out his teammates. He said that he's getting hit too much. And he said that he's not happy with what's going on in Seattle. And you know what? After all that stuff, that was so important. You know what's the most noticeable thing to me that he did not say? He didn't say "Go Hawks" at the end of the interview. If you go listen, just go on YouTube and type in Russell Wilson sound bites, Russell Wilson interviews. Every time Russell Wilson has an interview, he ends it with "Go Hawks." It's kind of like what Coach O down in LSU at Orgeron, a coach of the LSU Tigers. It's like him. Whenever he ends an interview, he always goes "Go Tigers" in that Louisiana accent, right? So he always goes "Go Tigers." Russell Wilson always says "Go Hawks" at the end of his interview. It does. And look, that sounds silly, but it's seriously something to notice. He doesn't say "Go Hawks" at the end of this interview. He doesn't. So he's frustrated. He calls out his team. calls out some of his offensive linemen, saying he's getting hit too much, he's not happy with it, and then he doesn't say go Hawks, right? So clearly there is an issue going on. Then, a week goes by, there's all this speculation, could Russell Wilson really get traded, blah, blah, blah. Well, then they take it a step further. And Russell Wilson's agent comes out and says, Russell is not demanding a trade, but if he was to get traded, he would like to go to these 4 teams. And he names Chicago, he names Las Vegas, he names Dallas, and he names New Orleans. Now, why he names those teams, different scenarios. We can get into that all day long. Look, Dallas is a massive market. If he wins in Dallas, he'll be a king there for the rest of his life. He'll never pay for anything. Dallas has wanted a Super Bowl for so long. He truly would be royalty if he could win in Dallas. It's also Dallas, right? Big city, big franchise, maybe the biggest franchise in all of sports. Chicago, I don't really understand that one. I don't get it. They don't have much to offer to me. They have a good defense, but their offensive line isn't that great. Their weapons aren't that great. I would much rather stay in Seattle than go to Chicago. The Saints, I totally get, but that's never going to happen. But the Saints makes total sense because they've got a head coach in Sean Payton who is super quarterback friendly. Russell Wilson would love to play for them. They've got a great offensive line, and they've got a fantastic defense. They truly are in win-now mode. So I get that, but the reason why I say that's never going to happen, because the Saints are in such a terrible situation with cap, it would be impossible for them to pull off a trade for Russell Wilson. It really would. And then Las Vegas, I totally get. Another great system, John Gruden, Las Vegas, Sierra would be happy in Las Vegas. Decent team, good weapons, good running back, good offensive line, just not a very good defense. So, but I totally get why he would pick Las Vegas there. So that's it. And I honestly think there's probably more teams he would accept a trade to. I just think those are kind of his way of just throwing out some agent talk there, using that as maybe a bargaining tool or whatever. But the interesting thing to me is his agent says he's not forcing a trade, but if he was to get traded, I mean, what are you pretty much telling us? You're telling us that, hey, Russell wouldn't mind leaving your franchise, just to let you guys know. He's not demanding to get out, but we want you to know he's not leaving. Now, this is what I have to say. Why is Russell Wilson, why are we at this point? How did it get to this point with Russell Wilson? Well, it's pretty clear to me. Russell Wilson is not happy with the way the offense is run in Seattle. That's what it comes down to. Look, he's going to complain about getting hit too much. That's true. He does get hit too much. There is no doubt about that. Since he's entered the league, he has been sacked more than anyone in the league. Second has been Matt Ryan. That's it. All right? He has been sacked the most since he's entered the league. So he's not lying there. But I actually don't think that's the biggest issue. I think the biggest issue is he's not getting his single person accolades, his individual accolades, and they're not winning. They're not winning big. See, Russell Wilson wants one or the other. He'd like both, but he would take winning over individual awards, no doubt. But if they're not going to be winning, well, then he would like to be winning the MVP. Well, he's not doing either. And he's not doing either because they're not letting him cook, right? We hear all the time, let Russ cook. What does that mean exactly? It means let Russell Wilson do his thing. Stop running the ball as much. Stop taking the ball out of his hands. Russell wants the ball in his hands. Let him create magic from there. Well, that's not how Pete Carroll runs his team. Pete Carroll is a run-first guy, play good defense, destroy the time of possession, and win football games in the ugly, old-fashioned way. That's what Pete Carroll does, ladies and gentlemen. That is who Pete Carroll is. And Russell Wilson's starting to look at it, and he's starting to say, Pete Carroll's not going to change for me. This is who he is. This is the system he wants. And I'm tired of it. I want to cook. I want to win an MVP. And more importantly, I want to win a Super Bowl, and I don't see us doing that here in Seattle. This isn't my opinion. This is what I'm telling you I believe Russell Wilson is thinking, because it just makes sense with everything we're hearing, okay? I'm not saying that I believe all this stuff. This is what Russell is saying in my mind. Okay? So I look at it and I say this. Seattle now has an option because I want to be honest here, guys, and I hate to say this to Seattle fans, but this isn't getting fixed. Name me a time when an athlete of Russell Wilson's caliber has been disgruntled and things have gotten fixed. Things do not get fixed. You can't put the toothpaste back in the jar or whatever it's called, back in the tube, right? You just can't. Once it's out, it's out. And now that all this dirty laundry is out, it is out. Eventually, Russell Wilson will be gone in Seattle. It might not be this year. It might not be next year. But Russell Wilson will not retire a Seahawk. I can promise you that. Because it's out there. Once it happens, and it's happened now, it's just going to keep coming up. Questions are going to be happening. They're going to be asked in the locker room. They're going to be asked to Russell Wilson. They're going to be asked to Pete Carroll. And it's going to become a nuisance. It's going to become annoying for everyone. And the best thing to do is move on, right? Unless Seattle says, we want Russell Wilson, not Pete Carroll. Because what I believe, I'm reading through the lines here. I'm trying to take us into a deeper conversation. I'm trying to take us into what I believe Russell's saying. And I think he's saying that I want to run a different system. And whether that's here in Seattle, that's great. But if not, peace out. I'm going to go do it somewhere else. Well, ladies and gentlemen, how do you run a different system in Seattle? You get a different coach. Seattle now has a choice to make. Should they move on from Pete Carroll and roll with their star quarterback, Russell Wilson? Or should they trade Russell Wilson and roll with the head coach? And ladies and gentlemen, that answer is the easiest possible answer. You get rid of Pete Carroll ASAP. Pete Carroll is a great coach. Pete Carroll is a national champion and a Super Bowl NFL winning coach. He is a Hall of Fame coach in my eyes. But guys, he was going 7-9 and 8-8 every single year until Pete Carroll found Russell Wilson in the third round, I think it was. He was about to get fired until Russell Wilson came in there and saved his job by being that franchise caliber player. Pete Carroll is replaceable. Russell Wilson, he might be replaceable, but not anytime soon. You don't just get rid of a quarterback like Russell Wilson and are back into playing, playoff mode right away. You will then begin a rebuild. But if the real issue is that Russell Wilson is not happy, he wants the ball in his hands. He wants to win the football game. He wants to cook. Let Russ cook. Pete Carroll has his ways. Pete Carroll is stubborn. He has won in this league, and he believes the right way to win is the way he's doing it right now. Well, Russell Wilson doesn't see that anymore. He wants to do it his way. He wants the ball in his hands. He wants to put up the gaudy stats. He wants to throw, for 40 touchdowns. He wants to throw for 5,000 yards. He wants to win the MVP, and he wants to win Super Bowls. And Russell Wilson thinks the best way to do that is putting the ball in his hands, not playing this run, play action game. No, pass. Eventually, we can run the ball here and there. That's what Russell Wilson wants to do. Pete Carroll is not that kind of coach. So Seattle's got to make a decision. Because I promise you guys, that toothpaste is not going back in the tube. Everything is out, and this isn't the first incident. This is numerous times we're now hearing from Russell Wilson, and now his agent is even telling us teams that he would go to. It's beyond messy now. There's no fixing it. You either move on from Pete, or you move on from Russ. It might not be this year, but it will happen. And I hate to say it, but that's just how these leagues work, guys. The NFL is no different. Deshaun Watson will eventually get moved. No matter how stubborn the Texans want to be, he will eventually get moved. It always happens. It always happens. Wow, what a show. What a show, our first ever GSMC Sports Podcast. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I can't wait. And remember, every Monday and Thursday will be when we put out our shows. When we record them, they should come out the next day after that. So thank you guys, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you follow along with us. So thank you for listening to the GSMC Sports Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show, write a nice review. That really does help us out. Also, if you can, please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you, everyone. Have a great night, and I look forward to talking to you again later this week.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.